Hello and welcome to the Katie Halper Show. Welcome everyone, one and all, to the Katie Halper Show. Really excited to be here with you on what I would wish would be a happier occasion. There is just so much stuff happening right now. Terrible news from all over, but we are really happy, I guess, relatively speaking, to be joined by a fabulous guest, major friend of the show, Rania Khalek, a great Lebanese-based journalist, Lebanon-based journalist, and also Lebanese journalist. She's going to give us an update about what is happening in Lebanon, also how that region is experiencing what is happening in Iran and in the Gulf countries. But before we start, please do like the stream. That's a really easy way to support the show for free. Like the stream, give it a thumbs up. Also, please do become Patreon supporters if you can at patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Oops, Bucky's obviously upset by the state of the world. That's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. And let's see, what else can we talk about? Sorry, I just got really distracted by Bucky, my dog. There must be something at the door. Okay, so also like the stream, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe. We're at over 400,000 subscribers, which is amazing. So you hit subscribe and then the bell. And I think that's about it. We're going to bring on Rania Khalek. And again, if you can become supporters at Patreon at the $5 a month or up level, that's really appreciated and makes the show happen. We literally couldn't do the show without your support. If you can't swing that amount, if it's too much, then you can become supporters at just the $1 a month level, which means you're paying $12 for this show. So without any further ado, let us bring to the stage Rania Khalek. Rania, hello. Thank you so much for joining. How are you?
I'm okay, Katie. Just let me know if I'm breaking up at all, because I feel like I don't know how my internet is at the moment, but I'm doing as well as can be under the current circumstances. Right. It's a tough situation here in Lebanon.
Right. Yes. Obviously, and I'm really sending you my thoughts are with you guys. It's so scary, because if you have friends who are there, you think about them, and then you realize that obviously I know this intellectually, and we all know about this, but there are just so many people who I don't know whose lives are hanging in the balance. And if you're safe, that's great, and I'm so happy. And then of course there are all the people who aren't safe. But on an immediate selfish level, it's of course great to hear that you're okay. But anyone who's in touch with people or has friends in this region, it's very stressful for you guys. I mean, it doesn't compare to what we're going through, but you are kind of constantly anxious and nervous that someone's going to be killed, whether it's in Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, Iran. So, by the way, someone said, "What's with the teeny picture?" If you are looking at this, there are two links. If you go to our, you know what I'm talking about, right? So there are two possible ways to watch this. One is vertical and one is horizontal. I will put in I'll try to add those links while Rania is talking. But I'm going to actually full screen you right now, Rania, if that's okay. Can you handle this?
I think so. I'll talk.
Yeah. So, and just tell us what is happening on the ground right now in Lebanon.
Well, as we speak, the situation on the ground in Lebanon is not good. It's been a week since the Israelis unleashed on Lebanon after Hezbollah fired some 6 rockets into Israel last Monday, early morning. And Israel, of course, responded by massive carpet bombing, mass displacement orders. I mean, it feels like kind of 2024 again, but on steroids in a way. And of course, this happened 2 days after the US and Israel launched a war on Iran. So 1 week, I'll get into some of the specifics of what's happened over the last week, but 1 week into that massive escalation on, we have over 300,000 people registered as displaced, but the estimate that it's likely much higher. Lebanon is a country of about, a little bit somewhere between 5 and 6 million people. So imagine right now, about 800,000 people across Lebanon have been subjected to what Israel calls evacuation orders, but they're actually, I used to use the term forced displacement, but I think the more accurate term now would be stay or die orders. They're like threats. So the Israeli spokespeople in Arabic will release these statements saying evacuate this building, evacuate that building, or evacuate this entire area, or you will die. And that's how people know where to leave from. And they've done that for the entire south of Lebanon, south of the Litani River. And a few days ago, they did that for the south suburbs of Beirut, which was a really dramatic and horrible day because of the way that displacement took place. But all that's to say, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people displaced across Lebanon again. The Israelis have killed almost 400 people, according to the Lebanese Health Ministry, since last week. And that includes 83 children. So in 1 week, the Israelis have killed 83 Lebanese children. And on top of that, the Israelis have put tens of thousands, something like they're saying 100,000 soldiers at the border with Lebanon in preparations of a potential ground invasion, though they have already done these raids into Lebanon where they are fighting on the ground with Hezbollah in certain areas. So it's a really horrific situation. Just last night in Beirut, so there are parts of Lebanon that are subjected to bombings by the Israelis that are considered pro-Hezbollah areas, which is basically just Shia areas. And that's the south of Lebanon, the south suburbs of Beirut, known as Dahieh, and the Bekaa, which is in the eastern part of Lebanon. And these areas have been subjected to mass displacement orders and mass bombings. However, Israel this time has been widening its scope of bombings in ways that have made everybody feel very unsafe. Just last night, about 10 minutes away from where I live, the Israelis bombed a hotel, a Ramada hotel in central Beirut in an area called Raushi, which they haven't ever bombed before in these recent wars. It was full of displaced people who were paying to shelter there in those hotel rooms. And they killed 4 people and injured 10 others. So that was pretty scary. And last week they bombed a hotel in a similar way in an area called Hazmiye, which is kind of like the southeast suburbs of Beirut, which is a very Christian area, considered very safe. And it was housing some displaced people. So that's made Israel's been the bit kind of last time around, you might remember in 24, Israel was downing these buildings full of displaced people. They're not downing them quite yet, but they're doing that again, where they're sort of hunting displaced people. In some cases, they might be trying to assassinate somebody they think is in that hotel. That's what they said happened last night. But another outcome of doing that is to really make people in these so-called safe areas not want to house displaced people, because the Shia population of Lebanon is basically being forced out of their homes, made homeless, and is on the run. They're being ethnically cleansed from their areas by the Israelis. And the Israelis really seek to stoke a civil chaos type situation in Lebanon. Lebanon is a very polarized sectarian society for reasons having to do with there's a lot of reasons for that, and it would take me a while to get into it, but Lebanon's a very sectarian place. And so the Israelis would love to see a scenario where Christians are attacking Shia displaced people, or Sunnis are attacking Shia displaced people, or Druze are attacking Shia displaced people, or just any fighting whatsoever. So that's one aspect of this. Another aspect of this is, I should say, Hezbollah I'm sorry, Katie, I'm just going to keep talking until you stop me.
Oh, no, no, there's a lot. Unless you want me to ask. No, keep going, please.
Well, what I was going to say is, so I mentioned Hezbollah fired these rockets at Israel on March 2nd, very early in the morning. I knew about this because I woke up to Israel bombing Dahieh because I live in Beirut, and I could hear it where I was. It woke me up, and I'm a pretty deep sleeper. So you can imagine, for somebody who's as deep a sleeper as I am, I can sleep through like lawnmowers. Okay.
Wow.
And so for something to wake me up, it has to be pretty damn loud. So it was 3 a.m., woke up, hearing that bombing, looked, obviously, I was like, what the hell is that? Looked at the news, and it had turned out that Hezbollah had launched these rockets, and the Israelis responded by bombing the south suburbs, basically declaring war on Lebanon and issuing these forced displacement orders for 53 villages at 3 a.m. in the morning. 53 villages across South Lebanon received these forced displacement orders. So you had families across southern Lebanon, if they happened to wake up, which a lot of them did because there was bombing around them, having to quickly flee their homes in the middle of the night with their children. And of course, the traffic was insane. The stories I was hearing was people were in cars trying to get out of the area for 20 plus hours. So it was a really chaotic, horrific day last Monday. People are still traumatized from the last war in 2024. So all of that was triggered. All that trauma was triggered across the country. once again, there, of course, was a lot of anger at Hezbollah last Monday. And I would say it was anger, obviously, from the typical part, because, Lebanese society is very polarized. And since the last war, which Hezbollah has been seen by a lot of Lebanese society as having lost in 2024, since that war, which was largely blamed on them in this country, you had a lot of people blaming Hezbollah for getting involved in this war on Iran. And it didn't help that in their statement that they released after launching these 6 rockets at the Israelis, and it didn't hurt anybody. These rockets did no damage, by the way. It didn't help that in that statement, the opening of it was saying this was to avenge the killing of the Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. And the reason I say that wasn't the best way, that wasn't the best statement, is because a lot of people in Lebanon who hate Hezbollah have been propagandized to view them as this extension of Iran, as this Iranian proxy. That's what the Americans call them. That's what all the Gulf state media in Lebanon calls them. And so to have that be the opening line made a lot of people, it kind of validated that for people who already hate them. So the reason I raise this is because a lot of the people who've been displaced are being blamed by this portion of Lebanese society for starting this war, and therefore are being treated horrifically. People don't want to house them. People don't want them in their neighborhoods. There's villages who've issued orders not to allow a single displaced person to even rent property at this time. There's other people taking advantage, trying to charge like $5,000 a month to rent like an apartment for a displaced family. Like, who the hell can afford that? So the treatment of the displaced has been really horrific. Israel's trying to play on that. The other thing I'll say is another thing Hezbollah mentioned in that statement, which is very relevant, is that for the past 15 months since the supposed ceasefire in November 2024 between Hezbollah and Israel has violated that ceasefire over 15,000 times. They have bombed Lebanon almost every single day. They had killed over 350 people, I believe, in that time. So people were being killed. Hezbollah sat on their hands. They did not once even respond to Israel. They didn't violate the ceasefire a single time. They abided by it. They even subjected themselves to a disarmament campaign, because after they were seen as having lost in the country, they were very weakened politically. And so the anti-Hezbollah forces in the country were able to take over the government, and they had a US gun and an Israeli gun to their heads. And they basically worked with the Americans to try to situate the Lebanese army to basically disarm Hezbollah. And that was a part of the ceasefires, that Hezbollah would disarm south of the Litani River, so across south of Lebanon. So Hezbollah actually did disarm in parts of Lebanon. They abided by some of this disarmament. They didn't disarm north of the Litani, but they are said to have disarmed south of the Litani. That's what the Lebanese army was being used to do, was basically to disarm the people of the south, so they wouldn't have a means to protect themselves. And in a normal country with a normal army, you wouldn't need a non-state actor like Hezbollah, right? Because the army should technically defend the people from an aggressor. The problem in Lebanon is that the army is beholden to outside funders, like the Qataris and like the Americans. Therefore, because of who their donors are, who basically feed them and give them crappy hand-me-down weapons, they're not even allowed to really confront the Israelis. They don't even have the weapons to confront the Israelis. And the Americans have been trying to create a situation in Lebanon where the army would have to face off with Hezbollah in some sort of armed confrontation to take away their weapons without offering the people of the South any mechanism for protection. So for the last 15 months, Lebanon has been in a very precarious situation that could possibly also descend into civil war, because if you have the army fighting Hezbollah, that would be a civil war type scenario. So the army has been trying to avoid a civil war type scenario and has been kind of slowly maneuvering in the direction of this disarmament campaign. And then all hell broke loose last week. And so after Hezbollah launched these rockets, and the sort of anti-Hezbollah camp in the country felt they had the upper hand, because they could say, oh, Hezbollah dragged us into war because they work for Iran. Look what they said in their statement about Ali Khamenei. The very next day, on Monday of last week, you had the Lebanese government basically issuing a declaration making Hezbollah's military wing illegal, declaring it illegal, and declaring their military activities illegal. So that was an escalation from the government. So this is what's happening in Lebanon right now. You have the government playing this role of trying to de-escalate the tensions on the diplomatic front, but there's nobody diplomatically trying to talk to them right now. The Americans don't care what Israel does to Lebanon. The Israelis certainly don't care. They're not trying to stop. Right. So the government has also declared that has also issued an arrest warrant for the Secretary General of Hezbollah, Sheikh Naim Qassem. I'm not really sure how that's going to work out. And they also have stationed the Lebanese army in areas to basically have checkpoints to stop people who are going to the south to make sure they don't have weapons. So it's just a crazy situation.
Right. Yes. So I want to ask you some more questions, but excuse me for this interruption. Guys, you need to like this stream. We have someone live from Lebanon, and less than half of you have liked, and that is unacceptable. Actually, the mobile viewers, fewer of them are watching, but they're liking at a better rate. So guys watching not mobile or mobile, I don't know what I'm saying, because you're losing. And this is not out of insecurity and seeking affirmation and validation. It's because it'll bring more people to the stream, and we really need to make sure that people are listening to what Rania is saying. Okay, so Rania, I have a question for you. What would you do if you were advising Hezbollah? Because obviously they are between Iraq and a hard place. They're between Iran in some ways and Israel and the United States on the other side. Not physically, obviously. But what would you say? What is the right way to handle this? Because we're seeing, and I keep saying this, there needs to be an international, transnational response to the West, because they're not being stopped, and they can't be stopped unless countries come together to inflict some kind of cost, whether it's economic, diplomatic, doesn't matter, but economic, military. So those are my two questions for you right now.
So look, I don't know. If you're a resistance organization right now facing off with the Israelis as a non-state actor using asymmetric warfare, I don't know how you face Israel. I don't know what I would tell any group to how to deal with this situation, because Israel's a very strong country militarily. They are technologically and militarily supreme over the entire region. And they currently have the backing of the full weight of the American military in the region behind them. I don't know. What I can tell you is there's a lot of debate happening about what Hezbollah did, why Hezbollah did it. I've heard different arguments for why they did what they did. Sheikh Naim Qassem, the Secretary General of Hezbollah, gave a speech last week. He didn't really go into explaining why they did what they did. I mean, he talked about the need to resist and this is existential and our right to exist on our land. And that's all true, right? Because Israel wants to occupy southern Lebanon. They see southern Lebanon as part of their greater Israel project. And if you read the Israeli media, they ideally would like to take 10 kilometers into Lebanon and create a buffer zone, as they've done in Gaza, that has no Lebanese people in it, which is just stealing land, right? They want to occupy land, but without the people in it. And so, that's how Israel behaves. And they're at their strongest and most insane messianic ever in this moment. I don't know how you fight that kind of enemy. I'm not a military expert. Right. One of the arguments I've heard is that this is a regional war where Iran is actually exceeding expectations, and there's going to at some point be some sort of settlement. And if you don't insert yourself into this regional war, you don't get to be a part of the settlement, and you'll become irrelevant. I've heard that argument. I mean, that's an interesting and fair argument, I suppose. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. I've also heard the argument that Hezbollah chose to do this, and this is speculation, because again, it wasn't really explained by them, the sort of strategy behind this. So from people close to them, these are the arguments I've heard who have been kind of explaining why they did this. Another argument that I've heard is that Israel right now is facing Iran, and therefore they're being depleted. And by having to fight, by picking a fight with them, which needed to happen eventually, because you can't have the status quo forever of Israel just killing people and violating a ceasefire and never responding, right? So the time to respond would be when Israel's overstretched and at a bit of a weaker point, because they have, their attention is elsewhere. Right. And, I have seen that because the Israelis are busy, using a lot of their aircraft to bomb Iran, they've actually had to use they've actually had to bomb Lebanon more from land and sea than just, although they are still using aircraft. But, I think the destruction of Lebanon is still pretty widespread. So I don't know, that we'll have to see if that is true as time goes on, because it's only been a week. And Lebanon has no air defenses. So even without Israel's aircraft, they can do a lot of damage. And so there's also the argument that, if Iran falls, Hezbollah won't be able to fight anymore, because they Iran's a strong party that helps, give them weapons and give them money. And I mean, that makes sense as an argument as well. But you have a lot of people, I mean, Hezbollah's always had to also take into account, like any actor in any state, the domestic scene. And so I do worry about the fallout of, because, you had Israel days or in the weeks leading up to the war on Iran repeatedly send warnings that if Hezbollah gets involved, we will attack civilian infrastructure in Lebanon, including the airport, right? And, that they basically would unleash. We already know what Israel unleashing on Lebanon looks like in this era, because they did it in 2024, and they've done it again with the mass displacement. And this does risk descending into some sort of civil chaos. And there really hasn't been anything done by any parties to mitigate that, because the Lebanese government, isn't doing the best job of taking care of the displaced. The people of Lebanon are so sectarian and polarized. They're not doing a good job. And they're also being made scared of the displaced, because Israel hunts and bombs them in safe areas, right? And quote unquote safe areas. So like, you hear a lot of stories of people not wanting displaced even in empty apartments in their buildings, because they fear that'll, make their buildings subjected to potential Israeli bombardment.
So divide and conquer as usual.
Exactly. And not even just by sect. I mean, even people who are Shia who live in so-called safe areas, I've heard stories and heard from some of them as being like, not even from a sectarian place, just because Israel's created a situation where people were like, they want people to be scared to be around displaced people, because
that's what I mean.
Potential targets.
Like an additional divide and conquer like axis, right? Which is
exactly
not just the sex.
So
Rania, I want to ask you a question that's well, actually I'll save it for the end. I'm going to ask you a question. It'll probably be Patreon only question. But it's not as Lebanon based. It's more of a philosophical, ideological one. But I wanted to show you a clip. I wanted to show everyone a clip of Donald Trump being asked on Air Force One with Steve Witkoff to the side of him. He's asked about an attack, a U.S. attack on a desalination plant. And I think his response is pretty fascinating. And of course, this was an attack on a desalination plant in Iran. And, I had seen Natusi on the other day, and he predicted that we're going to be seeing some attacks by Iran on desalination, we're going to see Iran's owned attacks on other places desalination happen as well. And that may have happened. Okay, so let's take a look at this clip.
Iran today accused the U.S. of hitting a desalination plant.
Okay, so it's saying Iran has accused the U.S. of hitting a desalination plant.
In Iran, and they said that might open the door to other strikes on infrastructure, non-military.
Allow us to also open the door to other strikes against them.
Can you respond to that allegation? Did the U.S. hit a desalination?
They are among the most evil people ever on earth. They cut babies' heads off. They chop women in half. What they did, take a look at October 7th. Take a look at what they've done over the last 47 years. So I know nothing about a desalinization plant other than to say if they're complaining about a desalinization plant, we complain about the fact that they shouldn't be chopping babies' heads off, okay?
All right, Rania, what do you have to say to this allegation of chopping women in half and chopping babies' heads off?
It's just so crazy how Steve Witkoff is standing there just like nodding along. And I don't think a single reporter was like, do you have any proof of that? Like, that's just insane stuff to say. Completely insane. Also, like, I mean, Katie, I just think that I find these people to be so terrifying. They're just absolute ghouls, absolute. Sorry, my electricity just went out, but I think it'll come back on. But they're just absolute. I look like I'm in the Blair Witch Project.
Yeah, no, you look like you're in the middle of a, Now, why did your electricity go off, by the way?
Oh, because I'm in Lebanon, and that's just what happens. Electricity goes out sometimes and then comes back on. Eventually it should.
Right.
Oh, no, I don't think so. I mean, you know what? Who knows? Who knows?
Mhm.
Who knows?
Right.
But
Well,
anyway, sorry if you can just bear with the weird
yeah, of course,
darkness around my face.
I mean, I think that
no,
that
these
it's
people are these people.
it's a
Yeah,
nice
go ahead.
callback. It's a great bipartisan reminder of how, you know, Joe Biden lied about babies getting their heads cut off, and so it's nice to see Donald Trump continue that bipolar tradition. Oh my God, I just said bipolar. That bipartisan and bipolar, perhaps bipartisan tradition of totally lying about the actions of our adversaries. And of course, the famous line, every accusation is a confession, because all of the violence, and especially the sexual violence that's attributed to Hamas, was actually perpetuated not by Hamas, but by Israel. And the children who are getting decapitated are the children being bombed by Israel and the United States. But please do continue with
no, absolutely
about this, but
no, absolutely. It's like definitely beheaded babies level stuff. And I think it just also shows you where Donald Trump's mind is at. Like, he is just this like elderly fascist man who is like really, he's surrounded by people who are just nodding along to anything he says and telling him insane shit. He's like listening to Lindsey Graham and what the Israelis and just Pete Hegseth is telling him about Iran. Like, he doesn't know anything about Iran. He literally went to war against a country full of like really smart people who come from a really long-standing, proud civilization.
Right.
Who he doesn't even understand how their system of governance works. Like, he thought he could just take out their leader and it was game over. He thought he was going to do like a 5-6 day war. And now he's literally like rained hell on the entire region and is maybe going to collapse the global economy. And he's doing it all really probably believing that Iran cuts women in half and like chops babies' heads off. Like, it's insane. Right. It's insane. Where are the fucking adults in the room?
No,
like
not there.
It's actually like when I see Pete Hegseth giving a speech or Donald Trump, these people are Nazis. Like, they are gloating, arrogant Nazis. What they are doing here is so insane. And Katie, when I watch mainstream media, I am just full of so much rage because I'm sitting here watching so much suffering around me. Like, people are sleeping outside in the cold on concrete because of what Israel's doing right now. No one's even really talking about Lebanon, let alone Iran. It's a country of 90 million people. A country of 90 million people is being subjected to carpet bombing. And you saw what happened in Tehran when Israel bombed these like fuel depots last night. It was like nuclear freaking winter in the sky and raining down oil. Like, they're creating apocalypse, and you literally have units in the U.S. military being told that they are fighting for Armageddon. Meanwhile, you have Marco Rubio calling Iran
a
bunch of religious fanatics.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, unbelievable.
It's boggling. And then I watch mainstream media and it's all about, but what's our end game and how is this good or bad for America? Right. It's like, what about the hundreds of millions of people who live in the Middle East, like all across the Gulf states? I know some people are like laughing at seeing like Dubai get hit and like, you know, all of these like Arab monarchies get hit, but like people live there too. And they are being subjected to this because of what the US and Israel initiated, you know?
Yes,
it's just, it's like, and I have family all across the region. Everyone is stuck because airspace is closed and it's really fucking scary. Like, this is scary. These are people's lives. They've been people's lives for the past 2.5 years. They've been people's lives in Iraq in 2003. And since then, and it's just like death and destruction. And then everybody sits there and goes, oh my God, why are these societies so corrupt and backwards? And
I know.
People just don't have electricity and we don't get it. And it's like, well, maybe if you didn't keep like bombing and destroying everything around us, these like ancient civilizations that created so much would actually be prospering instead of, you know, constantly having crazy high cancer rates and like rubble around us.
Yeah.
And sorry, I'm just so angry.
No. But not to mention the sanctions, right? Which don't even get any attention. Those are just constant. Rania, I want to ask you to respond to a really great argument by Matt Schlapp. Matt Schlapp has been a leader of CPAC. He's also been accused by several men of sexual assault and sexual harassment, which makes him a perfect spokesperson for the conservative Christian movement. He made a really great point the other day on Piers Morgan. He was upset that people were talking about the strike on the school that killed over 150 girls aged between 7 and 12. And so here's what he had to say in response to people who are talking about that.
I just feel like it's hypocritical to say that these attacks.
So it goes, it's hypocritical to say that these attacks
harmed women and children, when those women and children, the young girls that you reference, would live a life in a barbaric, unequal society behind a burqa with no ability to make career choices. The human rights in Iran is nothing you should use.
Yeah. So, I mean, Cenk is pointing out the logic of this. So just kill them. But what's your response to this, Rania?
What a fucking piece of shit. Like, go fuck yourself. Go fucking fuck yourself, you piece of shit. You hate children. You hate babies. And clearly you hate women since you like sexually assault them. But like,
no, to be clear, Rania, he sexually assaults men.
Oh, well, okay, fine. I mean,
just he still hates women,
but like
for other reasons. And
clearly he thinks it's okay for the US to just like bomb a school full of little girls and kill like 170 of them.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, these people need to go. When I see the smug, arrogant, murderous insanity that these people put out there, I'm just like, you know what? Like, you know what? I wish for him what he justifies to happen to Iranian little girls.
Yeah.
That's what I wish for him.
You mean you wish that he's freed from burqas? Don't you love the way he refers to burqas? By the way, they don't even wear there. But even if they did, he's basically saying we should actually liberate these women from life.
By killing them.
Yeah.
By killing them. And also they don't wear burqas. Like these people are so dumb. They don't wear burqas in Iran. Like I know it's very immature and like not sophisticated, but seriously, these people can go fuck themselves. Like, it's like that doesn't even deserve an argument because you are just a demonic person. Like you have a dark heart and you like hate, like, I don't even know how else to, you're like a sociopath. Like, right. I don't know how you can know that 170 or 180, like a lot of like almost 200 school children, little girls were murdered in like a double tap strike. I think it was.
Yeah, it was. It was. Yeah. A double tap. Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know how you can see that and be like, oh, we're liberating them. Like you are a psychopath.
A total psychopath. Yeah. It is absolutely sick and disgusting. And now they're going to have real career choices, right? Dead. And one of the girls, this is just a total anecdote, but I was reading an article about the double tap and one of the fathers of the girl, and he couldn't even recognize her because she was totally burned, but he recognized her by her belongings. He happened to say that she wanted to grow up to be a doctor. So, I'm sure Matt, maybe if Matt Schlapp had known that, maybe he would have wanted that one to be saved. The idea, though, that I don't care if they were all clad in burqas. Who gives a shit? That means you should kill them. It's kind of like when people talk about LGBTQ rights and how they support Israel because Hamas throws gays from the rooftops or whatever lies that they say. What do you think happens to the LGBTQ people in that region when you bomb them? Like, are they magically protected and liberated by these LGBTQ allied forces? I'm so glad that, LGBTQ soldiers, and it's ironic they can't even get married in Israel. Not that, but, they don't even have equal rights that they brag about. But yeah, the weaponization of like liberal values and feminism and LGBTQ allyship is just absolutely disgusting. I wanted to also, I realized that this is a guy who I had a little bit of a debate with myself back when I was on Laura Ingraham. Maybe I'll show this after you've gone because I don't really want to take up your time on this. But this guy like famously told me that, Israel had to do what it had to do because the Holocaust, so he voiced to me the Holocaust, which was really helpful. Now, Rania, I want to ask you a question. There's a lot of discussion about what's happening right now, and it's being framed as the United States doing the bidding of Israel, the United States doing the work of a foreign country. We're occupied by a foreign nation. And I think that you are someone who has a different analysis, right? It's not like there isn't an Israel lobby. It's not like there aren't AIPACs and Democratic Majority. It's not like there isn't Kufi, Christians United for Israel. But I think that this really misses one of the aspects of the dynamics. And I know this is something you've talked about. You even quoted Nasrallah on this. So what are your thoughts on this issue? you're watching this live, you're in luck. You got to see that whole thing. If you're watching this later, there's going to be some Patreon only that you're going to want to check out, where Rania really clears up a lot of misunderstandings, I would say, about what is actually behind all the violence that we're seeing now. And it's not quite that it's all Israel's fault. Now, I just want to be very clear. We 100%, we definitely blame Israel for its actions, and it is a genocidal state. But it's not only Israel. And as Rania explains, if you think it's just Israel, you will miss a large part of it, because while Israel is totally culpable, there's more to it. Now we're going to bring on our next guest. I'm so excited. Let's see if the sound works. We didn't have time to do a sound check, but let me just see. Andy, can we hear you?
I am here. I can hear you.
Great. Are you at your venue, one of your venues?
I am actually. I'm at the Anacostia location. We have a jazz brunch going on. It's really fun.
Amazing. So this is Andy Shallal, who I'm speaking to, who is the founder of Busboys and Poets, which is an amazing restaurant. I don't want to say chain, because I feel like chain makes it sound like really commercial and like cookie cutter.
Let's think of it as a group.
A group, yeah, it really is. It's like an organization that has a lot of really great. It's not just a restaurant and bar. It's like a community center, and you do amazing events. I've spoken. I had the privilege of speaking there with a couple times. Once on a panel with Medea Benjamin at one location, and then more recently I was with Craig McIver and Nura Erica, and that was great. Now, Andy, I have to go grab your book, because I want to show it to people. But what should we start talking about? You want to talk about Cuba? Do you want to talk about being from Iraq and the ways that what we're seeing with Iran in many ways echo what we're seeing with Iraq? Or do you want to talk about Iran? What do you want to tell me the first thing you want to cover?
I mean, we can talk about Iran maybe a little bit, because I'm sure that's on everybody's mind at this moment. It's something that, my heart really aches for Iran right now.
So I'm going to full screen you while I grab your book, okay?
Sure.
Okay, so tell us your thoughts on Iran. And of course, people should know that Andy himself comes from Iraq and was a big organizer against the Iraq War, which happened this very month in 2003. So, oh my God, I cannot believe over 20 years ago. That is insane. Okay, take it away, Andy.
Yeah. Thank you. Last night I had trouble sleeping. That's usually unusual for me, but because I usually sleep well. But I happened to scroll on to see video of the Israelis or the U.S. They're kind of melding together at this point. Hit the oil refinery and caused this huge plume cloud of smoke that that covered the entire city, and fire everywhere. It looked like Armageddon, really. I mean, it was a horrible situation. And of course, that comes on the heels of, the first thing that the U.S. did was bomb and kill about 170 young girls, ages 8 to like 12, 14.
Yeah.
It really is pretty devastating what's going on, and I find it quite disturbing. And I'm seeing, it is deja vu all over again. I'm from Iraq. It took me back to another time when bombs rained down on Iraq, on Baghdad, back in 2003. I watched my hometown, Baghdad, the place where I grew up, shake and burn. I remember watching buildings crumble and smoke billowing everywhere and fire below. And, I remember the reporters and the media was going around talking about the shock and awe and making it really look like a video game. Very, very disturbing.
Right.
So it would say similar stuff happening with this.
And of course, another similarity is that just as there were WMDs, there were nuclear bomb developments in Iran, right?
And also, the whole negotiations that ends up to be fake negotiations that provide some legitimacy and also buy time, because transporting all those military weapons and soldiers and people and logistics, all it takes time. So it's a great foil to have these negotiations that never end and really don't amount to anything. And what better way than to bomb somebody by total surprise when you're in the middle of a negotiation that seems to be going well. So that is really quite disturbing and a whole new game. And of course, you have a compliant media that is just a chorus of naysayers and just people that constantly promote those lies and horrors that happen and turn them into something very sanitized. So it's
Yep.
like a, stir and repeat,
Yeah, exactly. And the demonization of the Iranian government is
Oh,
quite
absolutely.
effective.
Absolutely.
And what's fascinating though is that it's effective to a certain extent, but you still have very low support for this war. And so imagine how much lower it would be if we weren't
Absolutely.
told that Iranians are, as Donald Trump literally said, chopping women in half and cutting babies' heads off. But what is so interesting is that you have disturbing is you have an inversion of reality. It's not just a lie, right? It's that the Iranians are, and this is in case people don't get it, I'm being sarcastic and I'm quoting the media and I'm saying that the opposite is true. But the media and our politicians likes to say that Iranians are these bloodthirsty theocrats who you can't negotiate with. They're irrational. And it could not be more of a description actually of Israel and the United States.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
A lot of restraint from Iran. They warn people when they're doing things. They focus more on military targets.
Yeah.
It's not
And anyone who thinks that the U.S. is not a theocracy is dreaming. I mean, we watch it in Congress, we watch it in the Oval Office when all these reverends and ministers and clerics from all over, they're all holding their shoulder and doing prayers and telling him to go and do what he has to do because we know that God is behind him, et cetera, et cetera. And it's really quite disturbing. And then of course you always have the willing group of people that are from diaspora that are willing to stand up, and they become the voice for all the Iranians that live in Iran.
Right.
And these people go out and wave their Iranian monarchy flags next to Israeli flags, next to American flags, and then just walk around down with the Ayatollah, down with this and so on, and then go off to brunch on their own, encouraging the U.S. to go bomb and destroy a country they haven't been to, they don't know much about. They left, some of them weren't even born there, and it just becomes a really disturbing, and again, a repeat of what happened in Iraq. Similarly, people were out there sort of cheerleading the war only to really take advantage. They're like vultures. They show up and they pick at the remains and sometimes take advantage of that situation. It's sad.
Yeah, it's really sad.
So hopefully, some cooler heads will prevail. I know that obviously Iran is outgunned. There's no way to be able to counter the amount of military hardware and software and in between where for the Americans and the Israelis bring to the table. So it's really hard for them to fight a conventional style war. And I'm always fascinated when I hear about, they're breaking the rules or they're doing something like that. It's like, are you kidding? Where are the rules and who wrote them and why do you keep breaking them and changing them in midstream? Anyway, it's the same all over again.
I want to show, by the way, an image of, again, these are people who are, our government is claiming that Iran is a bunch of theocrats, fundamentalists. And here is a video that I want to show of Trump hosting a prayer circle of pastors in the Oval Office. And one pastor prayed for God to, quote, give Trump, quote, the strength to lead our nation as we come back to one nation under God. So let me just play this. And again, remember, this is a government, an administration claiming that it's Iranians who are the fundamentalists.
Right.
Lifting up the arms of our president. We pray for your continued blessing and favor to rest upon him. We pray for wisdom from heaven to flood his heart, his mind, and Lord, you will guide him in these challenging times that we're facing today. I pray for your grace and your protection over him. I pray for your grace and protection over our troops and all of our men and women serving in our armed forces. And Father, we just pray you continue to give our president the strength that he needs to lead our great nation as we come back to one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We pray your heavenly blessing upon him in Jesus' name.
And so it's also worth reminding people that, you know, you have soldiers calling in to report that commanders are framing this as a religious war, describing Trump as anointed by Jesus. So, Andy, I want to ask you about because you wrote this great book called The Seat at the Table, and it's a page turner. And as I was telling people, it's not just a page turner if you read it, but it's also a real treat to listen to it because it's you who recorded it. So if you like guys like books on tape, well, it's what it used to be called, audiobooks, you'll want to do that. It's a great read. It's personal. It's political. It talks about your history as a restaurateur. Is that the right word? Do you call it that?
Yeah,
it's really fascinating. Tell us about this book and what made you write it. And also, it's has blurbs by Ralph Nader, who calls it a fast-moving memoir. Read on and relish. It has an intro from Angela Davis. Alice Walker calls it magnificent. It brought tears many times. So yeah, tell us what made you write this book.
Well, I mean, a lot of times people come into Busboys and Poets. For those of you that don't know, we are a group of restaurants here in the Washington metropolitan area. There's 8 locations that we have right now. And so when I started Busboys and Poets, it was kind of this labor of love, really. I just wanted to create a place where I could create a community to come together, talk about like exactly what you're talking about, Katie. You know, issues that are important to people, issues of the day, issues, you know, that deal with art, culture, politics, and create a collision of those things and see how things sort of shape out. Well, as it turned out, people really needed something like that and wanted something like that. And I kept getting a lot of encouragement of people telling me to do more, open more. But what about my neighborhood? What about my neighborhood? And I started doing more and more of those. Now we have 8 of them, like I mentioned. But a lot of times people would ask, like, how did you come up with the idea? What made you want to do this? And so on. And the idea is not all that. I mean, bookstores have been around forever. Cafes have been around forever. You know, poetry has been around forever. All of that has been around for a long time. It's just a matter of combining them together under one roof and creating the synergy that I think comes out of all those things colliding in one space that makes it kind of exciting and fun and unique, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It is great. And you also have tons of really fascinating intellectuals, artists, creators, activists who've come to your space over the course of the years. Yeah,
we really are. You know, I do murals in this space, and so I put a mural in one of the locations recently where it had a lot of the people that have been to Busboys and Poets, and it really is the who's who of the civil rights and peace movements here in the United States. Some have passed on, and some are still living, of course. And it's really cool to see how many people have crossed paths at Busboys and Poets. We've created, I think, a really wonderful crossroads of lots of different people coming together under one roof.
Yeah, including Jesse Jackson.
Oh yes, indeed. He's on the wall actually.
Yeah, exactly.
He was there and he signed it. You know, this is a few years ago.
Yeah. And Andy, something else that I wanted to mention is that you and I are both going to Cuba. We're taking part in
we are.
Boy, tell us about your experience.
I was so excited to hear you were coming.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Is this your first time, or have you been there before?
Actually, my 4th time. I went under Bill Clinton. I went under George Bush, and I went under Obama. What about you?
Wonderful. This is probably my 7th or 8th time now.
Oh wow!
So yeah, we've been doing trips to Cuba through Busboys and Poets and working with, of course, you know, some local travel agencies that we work with, and we create these wonderful educational trips for people to go there and learn so much about Cuba, Cuban culture, Cuban programs, the healthcare system, the education system, the biomedical industry that's there. There, of course, tourism is huge. All of those things, and the politics, of course. The fact that Cuba has been in the crosshairs of the United States for over 65 years is really criminal and awful and should not be. And, this constant harassment of this country that we have put on the states that sponsor terrorism, which is, again, an upside down world, because all the terrorism has been really directed at Cuba, most of it coming from the United States through, the CIA and other sanctioned groups. In fact, just as recently as a couple of weeks ago, when a group of criminals, really wanted terrorists, were trying to invade the island on a boat that's loaded with all kinds of munitions. So it's constant and it's consistent. And now, Marco Rubio, of course, is of Cuban origin, and interesting enough, his family left before Batista was overthrown. So
even
that's an interesting little caveat, right? Yeah, he's considering himself, these sort of people longing to go to Cuba, and no one stops people from going to Cuba. That's the irony, is anybody can go to Cuba. They can go and see friends and be with other people and so on. The problem is the United States puts restrictions on people traveling to Cuba. It's not the other way around.
Right. Yes. It is unbelievable, and the restrictions come from the United States.
Yes, they do. Yep, indeed. Yeah. Indeed. Yeah. And so we constantly have to push back when rules don't make sense. We have to be, as citizens, really speak up and say, this doesn't make sense. Can you tell me why we're doing this? And if it doesn't stand up to scrutiny, it probably needs to be changed, right? I mean, for us to just throw these ideas willy-nilly about, we have not seen any evidence of Cuba supporting terrorism, So
yes,
unless,
not at all.
Unless they can show us, yeah, exactly. Unless they can show us where that is, it makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
So it's really unfortunate and sad, because Cuba has been under one of the most restrictive sanctions and blockade now. Yeah. You can't have oil going in and out of the island. It's a tiny island. It's got about 10 million people, and it really doesn't have many resources per se. Its main resource is its people.
Yeah,
and right. And when you don't have access to fuel, which fuels everything, people don't understand. Fuel isn't just driving around in a car. Fuel also runs hospitals and runs schools and runs healthcare centers and old folks' homes and homes, ordinary homes, and so on. Cooking, fuel and things like that. It makes absolutely no sense that we are doing this to a population and blaming it on the government when the government is of the people. I mean, this is really a country that truly tries to be. Now, no country's perfect, and the Cubans were first to tell you this is not, utopia, but it is trying to become a more egalitarian society. And that's fraying. That's falling apart.
And also, like, even if you hate the government, you're not helping the people. And I don't hate the government. I'm just explaining that even if you do, you don't help the people by bombing them, or as we do in Iran, or by invading them, as we tried to do in Cuba, or in cutting them off from oil, which has real deadly effects, because as you pointed out, it does run hospitals, and you do have people dying of cancer unnecessarily, and you do have children dying of cancer unnecessarily.
Absolutely.
Another thing that's interesting is that this doesn't just hurt Cuban people, but it hurts people around the world, because now you have people under U.S. pressure kicking out Cuban doctors, because one of the strengths of Cuba is what they've done abroad. And I think Cuba, honestly, probably has the best foreign policy record of any country, in terms of whose sides they took and what struggles they supported. The anti-apartheid movement. Nelson Mandela was always very appreciative of Cuba. And, Liz, from a journalist, Liz Oliva from Belly of the Beast, who we're going to be seeing in Cuba, and I had her on my show a couple of weeks ago. She did this report about a doctor. She interviewed a Republican, like as in Republican Party doctor, from the United States, who has to go to Cuba to get Alzheimer's, try to get these
Yes.
Alzheimer medications, because Cuba now is amazing when it comes to medical care, healthcare, and research. And they also really challenge the whole paradigm of how you need to have a for-profit system in order to spur innovation, because they've discovered many vaccines without having a for-profit system.
Yeah. I mean, one of the cruelest things that we did was during the COVID. We blocked Cuba. We wouldn't send any aid to Cuba to help them to eradicate COVID. They ended up having to create their own vaccines, 5 different vaccines actually that they created with very little resources.
Right.
So it's a real testament in resilience that I think no one should ever have to go through.
Right. And one last thing I want to show you, because we did bring up Jesse Jackson. A friend actually literally just texted this to me. 1 second. And it is Jesse Jackson's son speaking at his father's memorial. And he doesn't hold back here. He's about what I'm going to show you is a criticism of the politicians who I guess, kind of politicized Jesse Jackson's funeral. He's referring in the following clip. You're going to hear him referring to Obama, Biden, and Clinton. Okay, so let's take a listen to this. Okay, here we go. Okay. Thanks everyone for your patience. Okay, let's play this now. Okay.
Yesterday, I listened for several hours of 3 United States presidents who do not know Jesse Jackson. He maintained a tense relationship with the political order, not because the presidents were white or black, but the demands of our message, the demands of speaking for the least of these, those who were disinherited, the damned, the dispossessed, the disrespected, demanded not Democratic or Republican solutions, but demanded a consistent, prophetic voice that at no point in time ever sold us out as a people. And it speaks volumes about who the Reverend Jesse Jackson was. Our message has already been delivered today. I can see it all over my mother's face. Rise, Jesse, rise. Give Jonathan Jackson another great round of applause for delivering our family message to the world.
Well, I just thought it was interesting to watch his son really call out the politicians and the powers that be, who really oppose a lot of Jesse Jackson's principles.
Yeah. I think he's coming to Cuba.
Oh, great!
Yeah, not at the same time we are, but he's coming. He's coming, I think, about a week later with a delegation.
Oh, great. Yeah, right. And, to be fair, Obama was good on better on Cuba, but Biden didn't even reverse the Trump ban until like the last day. And that didn't even take,
which was really criminal. It was awful. And I think one of his biggest failures, the fact that he was under Obama when things were quote unquote normalized, and then he ends up holding off. Right. And kind of moving forward the Trump agenda as opposed to really going back to the Obama agenda. But to be clear, Obama's policy and Clinton's policy and other policy was always about regime change. That normalization was just a different tactic to create regime change. So I think that is, the thread that ties all of them together. And
Yeah.
that's the part I think we need to unravel, because that is not okay. That is
Yeah.
not okay. That Monroe Doctrine needs to be thrown into the garbage where
Yeah.
it belongs.
And Liz Oliva from Belly of the Beast made that point really clearly. She was like, we liked it more, we enjoyed it more, but it was 100% regime change what Obama was trying to do.
Yeah. He was just nicer about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, Andy, thank you so much for your time. Anything else you want to make sure we cover, or should I let you back into the wild? By which
I want people to just really pay attention to what's going on in Iran. I think it's very easy to listen to some of those, folks that are promoting regime change and trying to promote the Shah and the son of the Shah and so on. I really think that it's so narrow-minded and so narrow-focused. The idea that you want to have this quick reversal of things and hope that things will get better. The Shah has absolutely no support in Iran. The support is probably, there are 90 million people in Iran, 95 million people in Iran. And if he gets 5 million, that's a lot. Although that sounds like a lot of people, but it's a tiny percentage of the entire population. So we have to understand that. There is actually a fair amount of support for this government. Now, yes, it's a theocracy at some level. It needs to change, but that's up to the Iranian people. Exactly. It's not up to us to decide. We have to work on changing our government. That's where the head of the snake is, and that's what we need to focus on.
Yeah, and when Jake Tapper says, why aren't people protesting against Iran the way they protested against Israel? Oh, I wonder why. Could it be because our government, he means Americans, why aren't Americans protesting?
Yeah.
Maybe because our government is the one bombing Iran and funding and supporting Israel. So it's a bit of a different relationship between those two.
Or like to watch Jon Stewart, which was really disturbing when it happened. Yes, I mean that was really terrible.
Aaron and I played that. He does not get that. Yes, he didn't understand.
Yeah, it's like John. Seriously, you were my fave. All of a sudden he went crazy.
He's been good on the Middle East too. Yeah,
he's been very good on the Middle East, but I think somebody misinformed him, and I think and I think if I don't know if you want to quickly tell people what it is. Jon Stewart was trying to compare the idea of how Iran is responding to the U.S. and Israel by bombing, the different Middle Eastern countries that hold the U.S. bases there. And when all the flights are coming out of that bomb it, they said, oh, this is like a bar fight where somebody comes and punches you in the face and you go and punch everybody else in the face in the entire bar. That's, first of all, it's not a bar brawl. That's not what we're comparing it to. No. And second of all, Iran has been very tactical about the way they're approaching this. They're not just bombing, apartment buildings. They're actually going after strategic sites that actually have an impact, that actually can stop the horrors that they're facing from this incredible arsenals coming from Israel and the U.S.
Yeah, exactly. And he has been good on this. In fact, Nate is going to grab that clip that you were just talking about, but I want to show a time when he was good at this. So on this issue, because I do think he was just misinformed on this. I don't think he's an enemy.
Yes. No, I don't think so either.
Bring him in and call him in instead of calling him out. But here he is. Yeah. Let me just. Here he is talking about Iran in June. Okay, 1 second. And then we'll show you his demonstrating not quite the same level of understanding. Okay.
But what happened with Iran? When we about to make a nuclear deal, wasn't our deal maker in chief making a deal to keep Iran from enriching uranium? Actually, didn't we have a deal before our deal maker in chief so wisely pulled us from that deal? Why did this have to go balmy on Iran now?
And by next spring.
So yeah, so there he gets it, right? He gets the. Oh, weird. What happened to the audio? Maybe it's like. Hold on 1 second.
And move on to the final stage.
That's weird. Oh wait, I'm sorry. What happened there?
Iran is months away from having a nuclear bomb. It says Netanyahu.
1 second.
In 2012.
This is very bizarre. Oh, you know what? I muted another window. I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me.
By the way,
by next summer.
Okay, so let me.
Why did this have to go balmy on Iran now?
And by next spring, at most, by next summer, at current enrichment rates, They will have finished the medium enrichment and move on to the final stage.
Iran is months away from having a nuclear bomb, says Netanyahu, in 2012. By the way, did Iran happen to get that bomb from a company called Acme? Like, will it be delivered to Israel on rocket-powered skates? Will it go off in a tumultuous me? Seriously, why did we have to bomb Iran now?
Iran is so dangerous. Weeks away from having the fissile material for an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs.
Holy shit, that's why. Iran's only weeks away from having an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs, says Netanyahu. In 2015. 2015. Think about that. Back when we all thought, oh no, the Republicans might nominate that madman Jeb Bush. Should have gone with the question mark. No, seriously, I'm not being facetious. I really want to know why we had to bomb Iran now.
We're going to show you Iran's secret nuclear files. Here's the warhead. Here's the bomb.
And that's from 2018. I don't know if Iran is any closer to having a bomb, but it is clear Israel now has the capacity to enrich their drawings.
Yeah. So that is Jon Stewart kind of.
That's well done.
His
Yeah.
best. And here is Jon Stewart now. And again, this is why we're going to make sure that we educate him. John, if you're watching here, Andy just explained why what's happening is happening. But let's show people and the reason this is important is because he's not the only person saying this. Actually, David Rubin is saying this, but David Rubin is like a total putz who is irredeemable. But let's take a look at what he had to say. What Jon Stewart had to say when he was not as on the ball. Okay.
It's also fired on Europe for the first time.
What? Cyprus? I don't even know where that is. Is Cyprus even on that risk board? I don't even think it's around there. So wait a minute. Let me get this straight. America and Israel attack Iran. And Iran's answer is to just attack everybody. You know, having been in a bar fight or two in my life, I'm pretty sure the worst thing you can do during a 2-on-1 beatdown is slap everyone else. Hey, not every part of me is getting punched. What are you doing? Hey, you.
It's also fired.
Okay, so there you have it. And not understanding what's happening, but I believe he can mend his ways, John. Maybe we can.
I think so too.
Script.
I'm not ready to give up on him.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah.
We all allow some mistakes. Sometimes
Yeah.
I think we tend to be overly precious about these things, and we need to allow some room for mistakes for people.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Andy, and I will see you in Miami and then in Cuba, right?
All right. Yes, indeed. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Don't go away, guys, because we have another guest. This show has been an amazing show, and we have someone now joining us from the West Bank because, as people know, with Gaza, there was a lot of justifiable attention being placed on Gaza. But what was happening at the same time, of course, were these murderous attacks in the West Bank, sustained terrorist attacks. And we want to make sure that that gets covered because Palestine in general is getting less attention, ranging from Gaza to, of course, the West Bank, because of what's happening in Iran. So we are bringing onto the show Mohammad Hesham, who is a journalist based in the West Bank. Welcome, Mohammad.
Hi.
Hi, can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. I do.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for joining. Tell us what is happening right now where you live.
So yeah, thank you for hosting me and to let the people hear more about what is happening here in the West Bank and in Gaza. So first of all, I want to introduce myself. I'm Mohammad Hesham Huraini from the West Bank. I am an independent journalist and activist working in the community called Masafer Yatta, where we have been talking before, and we explain about Masafer Yatta on Useful Idiots with you and with...
yeah.
So I want really to make a very quick explain about what is happening in the West Bank here exactly. So first of all, yesterday, and let's say in the last 24 hours, the Israeli settlers, they are trying to take the advantage, and they already took the advantage of the war that Israel and America started on Iran to attack and kill Palestinians in the West Bank, even in the Gaza Strip. But Gaza Strip, it's a different story, and it's a different one that who's bombing and doing in Gaza Strip. So in the past 24 hours, what was happening here in my community and in the West Bank in general, we have 4 martyrs that they were killed by the Israeli extreme settlers. In my community, there was one got killed by after a settler attack, and his brother was shooted in the chest and in his stomach. Then this shooting led him to a serious injury. He was carried to the hospital, but luckily he managed to survive. He succeeded to survive from these 2 bullets. But his brother, Amir Shinran, his name, unfortunately, we lost him after a shooting by a settler. He shot him a bullet in his chest, and directly from the chest going up to his neck, and killed him directly. This was just in the past 24 hours in my community. In the late evening, we heard some news on the social media, on the journalist groups, that there is a very huge pogrom happening in Abu Falah village, east of Ramallah. There was a settler attack, and it was a very, very huge pogrom. The settlers, they start really to chase people and start to attack them inside their houses while they are preparing, that we are in Ramadan this month, preparing for sahur, which is the last meal that they have to do it before they start their fasting. The attack and the pogrom started. Then settlers, they start to shoot directly and towards the people. It's a clear that they want to kill someone. They want to shoot someone. Unfortunately, and really, I'm really sad and mad and angry from what is happening and what I'm going to say, because these bullets that were shooted by the Israeli settlers, it was under a full view of the Israeli occupation forces and police. It just hit 3 Palestinian men, leading them to death directly. And here in the Palestinian communities and in the Palestinian villages, we are a little bit far from the cities, and we are a little bit far from the hospitals and all kind of a health treatment. So if an ambulance, or if the first good car to accompany these injuries to the hospital, it needs 40 minutes to reach to the injury, and another 40 minutes to take the injury from the place that he was injured in to the hospital. So just in the past 24 hours, we have 4 martyrs here in the West Bank. After that, I went to the hospital to see the injuries that was happening, that was injured yesterday by the settlers. We reached to the hospital, and it was a nightmare what we saw in the hospital. We heard just the 2 brothers, they were shooted, but when we reached to the hospital, we saw the entire family was attacked. Their mother was beaten, having a broken leg and broken hand. Their sisters, they were beaten by sticks, and they have some scratches in their faces, in their hands, and their bodies. So you are talking about 4 injuries with sticks and stones, and 1 injury with a settler bullet, and the other one Amir Shinaran, the one that he was killed by that settler. What we saw after that in Abu Falah, in Masafir Yatta, wherever, it didn't start today, it didn't start yesterday. It have been like since decades. These settlers, they are moving and patrolling around, killing, shooting, attacking with no impunity.
And by the way, with impunity, with no punishment, with impunity.
Yes.
Right. But I want to show, if this is okay, I want to show some of the martyrs that you referred to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, right. So you posted this. You wrote, while all eyes are on the American-Israeli war in Iran, violence continues in the West Bank. Settlers are taking advantage of the war to attack Palestinians and kill civilians. 4 Palestinians were killed in the past 24 hours by the settlers' terror. 1 in Wadi Rakim and 3 in Abu Falah. Let me just show these. And okay, so it's just tragic. It's unbelievable. And this is just part of the daily occurrences. And we can also show some videos. And I just wanted to also let people know that Mohammed lives in the area that was featured, that was covered in the documentary No Other Land. And as we all know, well, maybe you know, and that was directed by, co-directed by a Palestinian and an Israeli Jewish director. And despite the fact that it literally won the Academy Award, an Academy Award, it's not very available. It's not been picked up by distributors. And despite that attention to it, you had people, you had one man who was actually murdered by a settler there, and you've had other attacks more recently on this same area, including on the director.
So yeah, actually, let's say most of the people around the world, they knew about Masafir Yatta after the No Other Land documentary and after the winning of the award, the Oscar. But when we heard like Masafir Yatta won the Oscar, No Other Land documentary shows the harsh reality and the sad reality of what is happening here in Masafir Yatta. And it's No Other Land, it's an image for the entire West Bank. It was taken in Masafir Yatta, but the entire West Bank is lived under the same treatment and lived under the same regime, under the same attacks, under the same like everything. But when you hear like Masafir Yatta won the Oscar, it doesn't mean that really the Oscar will protect us, or the Academy will take there will be a serious actions against these settlers, or at least let's say like the directors, they will be in safe. No, after they won the documentary, there was several attacks on the directors themselves. Like the 2 Palestinian directors, they are both my cousins, one from my mother's side and the other one from my father's side. They both were attacked. And right now I'm here in the house of one of the directors. I'm talking with you from the house of one of the directors. Basil Adara, for example, Basil Adara was harassed. He is one of the directors. He was harassed. He was attacked. He was facing detention, and he was going to be jailed. And he's one of the directors and one of the Oscar winner. Hamdan, for example, like a month ago, his entire family was attacked by settlers in Susia village. Nobody talked about it, and they are the award winning.
Right. So you can
they were the directors of the documentary. So it's really a harsh reality. It's really a sad reality. When we are talking like whoever will win the Oscar, he will have like a full attention about this person. Like, yeah, he won the Oscar. This person is amazing. Blah blah blah. All these things. But in Masafir Yatta in Palestine, it's totally different. No matter what do you have, no matter if you won the Oscar, no matter like who are you. Here in Palestine, I said it before, and I said it every time, and I will repeat it again. Being a Palestinian, it's a crime for this regime. It doesn't mean anything if you have an Oscar. It doesn't mean anything if you have any kind of award from this world. Like what we are really looking for, it's not just an award. It's just not an Oscar. It was amazing. It was really something. We really felt happy after like a Palestinian director won the Oscar, but in the same time we need more than that. We need protection. We need to live in life with a dignity.
Yeah.
One of the collaborators of this documentary was shot and led to kill. Auda Hadalim, for example.
Yeah, he died. He was killed. Yeah, awful.
Yeah.
I want to show, by the way, I want to show some videos that you posted of the violence that you're describing. But I also, since we're talking about No Other Land, I want to show a trailer from it. Because I just want people to get a sense of what this this film showed. Let me just make sure I've unmuted it. 1 second, please. And everyone, thanks for bearing with us, bearing with me while I do this. Again, during these extra streams, we don't always have time to coordinate and make sure that we have someone, you know, a Brad here or a Brad. So here we go. Is the army down there?
1,000 Palestinians face one of the single biggest expulsion decisions since the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian territories began.
Guys will come home. Here, come back. This is a story about power. My name is Hazel.
مسافر يطا هي المكان اللي كبرت فيه. بداية تصويري هي بداية نهاية.
جرافات؟
إيه بولدوزر؟
أنا متلعب بخير.
I need air. Oh my god. Basil? Yeah. This is the your Palestinian. No, I'm journalist. You're Israeli? Seriously? We have to raise our voices, not being silent, as if no human beings. What?
This is what's happening in my village now. Soldiers are everywhere.
What do you think you're calling me? Son of a whore. That's if you're soldier, an Israeli soldier. And that, of course. It would be so nice with stability one day. As you bow. And you'll come visit me, not always be visiting you. Right? Basil says maybe. What do you think? If you were in my place, what would you do? No other way. It's also won several awards, and despite that, again, no major distribution. I want to show some of the violence, unless you want to respond directly to that. I want to show some of the videos that you've posted.
Absolutely, it's totally fine. Yeah.
Okay, great. So we'll go in chronological order. Let me make sure this is chronological. I believe so. It's also not a huge deal if it's not, because it just gives you a sense. Okay, here we go. So this is the moment when this is February 11th, the moment when the child Ayman Rabe, 11 years old, was injured by an explosive device left behind by the Israeli occupation army next to his home in my community, Masafer Yatta, after the last raid to his house in Jinba village. So that's you. That's your tweet. So that's you who are from your perspective. I mean, like grammatically, I don't mean like that's what you say. I mean, literally, he's the one writing it. So it's not me, obviously. Okay. Let me show this. So you see that there's a line that's showing the device. So that's just one example of what happens. Now I'm going to show a clip from you write just minutes ago in Susia Masafar Yatta, more than 30 armed settlers came out a coordinated attack on Palestinian families. The settlers were seen throwing explosives at a home with a family inside and smashing security cameras with stones to hide the crime. Okay, so let me show this. Now settlers pogrom in Masafer Yatta. More than 30 armed settlers raid the village. Tried to smash the camera so it doesn't film the crime. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not showing. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay. Sorry. It's hard to run this on my own. Okay. There we go. And you'll see him throw it at the camera. He misses. These are people who are claiming that they're just defending themselves. Has been smashed for the third time by the settlers. Okay, so that's another clip. Now we have from that same day, I believe, you have more footage of settlers. One second. It's very hard to do on your own.
Yeah, this is from the same day.
Yeah. So what is it that they're throwing? What are they throwing at the car? Like, what are those things we see? So obviously they're banging.
They stones and they smash the car windows with the sticks. Like if you watch them now, and they like make fire on the other side with the big with that big truck.
Okay. And now you have something. This is from February 26th. This is a clip of you were at last night. Apartheid forces assaulted a group of Palestinians, young men, during a raid on the village of Al Takba, south of Hebron. This is in the West Bank, and this is the quote most moral army in the world, of course. Disgusting. A soldier is banging a young man into a wall. Of course, there's three of them because they're such cowards. They can't handle one guy on their own. Forcing him to sit down. He's touching his head probably because it was smashed. And then here's another thing you posted. Oh my gosh. Okay, hold on one second. This is well, let me actually screen share. I'll start by screen sharing. This will be a little bit faster this way. Okay. And again, thank you guys for your patience. Am I sharing it? Can we see it? Not yet. Okay. Urgent. Israeli settlers launched a terror attack on my community. Masafer Yatta, Wadi Rakim village. They shoot two brothers, leading Amir Shanaran to death and his brother Khalid Shanaran with a serious injury. Masafer Yatta is bleeding against Stop Settlers Terror.
Laying the ground.
Sorry, what'd you say?
You can see him laying on the ground. This is the guy that was shooted.
Right here. Okay, let me lower the volume. Right here, right. Him.
Guy, this is Khalid Shanaran, the one that was injured, not the one that was killed. The one was taken to the hospital, but with the ambulance because the ambulance did not reach to the area.
With an ambulance because what?
in this area, the ambulance cannot reach this area, so the ambulance need at least like 1 hour to reach here. So they took him with a civil car. Then they met with the ambulance to the closest entrance. And you know, now in the West Bank, all the entrances of all villages and communities and cities, they are closed, so nobody allowed to move in or out. So ambulances, anything cannot really get in or get out. Even if you want to bring your food, if you want like to do whatever, to go to your work, if you got injured, not just from a settler, whatever. Yani, if you fall down, for example, and you want to go to the hospital, you are not allowed to go out from your village, because we have gates. The Israeli occupation forces put these gates on every entrance in the West Bank. We have over than 1,000 gates around the West Bank, and we have to pass through all these gates. So if these gates it's not opened, you are not allowed to move, and if it's opened, there is a checkpoint on this entrance.
Yeah, and again, you know what is so disturbing is that this is what they do when they're being filmed. I mean, so just imagine what they would do without it being recorded.
Exactly.
Just awful. So tell us, Mohammed, about what kind of journalism you do, and also like how hard it is for you to do this without risking your life.
Yeah, I said it before, and it's not safe in all sides. Like Amir Shiniran, the guy that was killed yesterday, he's not a journalist, he's not an activist, he's just a Palestinian, want to live freely, to move around his house without anyone harassing him, without anyone threatening him. And yesterday he was killed. Why? Because he was trying to protect his family after a settler pogrom that carried out directly to his house. So for me, it's like risky. In the same time, it will be like the double of risk, because I'm doing like journalism and activism. Settlers knows me, soldiers knows me, and they know what I'm doing, and they know that I'm going to take all this footage to show it to the whole world. So all the people around the world will start to understand and will be like more educated about who is these guys, who is this occupation, and what they are doing in the West Bank, in Gaza, or whatever. So it will be really risky, but I'm doing it because I believe with what I'm doing. I believe that one day we will reach to justice. We will reach to freedom, and I want to be part of this freedom. I want to be part that to help and to support my community and to support like the entire country about what is happening and what was going on.
Right.
In the same time, it's still risky, and I'm like facing risk every day. If it's not from soldiers, it will be by settlers. If it's not from settlers and soldiers, it will be by police, because they are all part of the same body, aiming to one goal: to ethnic cleanse and to force people and to displace them from their places, to build the new outposts and to build the new settlements instead of the Palestinians' villages and cities.
Yeah, it's like you said, it is a crime. The crime is to be Palestinian.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
yeah.
You can be a journalist and you're exposed extra, but you can be minding your own business and you can also be killed.
Exactly.
What kind of things, Mohammed, do the soldiers say to you when they see you? Oh, and the settlers. What do the settlers say to you when they see you?
Like they know our names, and they know my name because we are posting on social media and it's for public. So they search about us and they know who are we. And directly, like settlers, first thing, like during an attack or something, they aim to us, telling the soldiers that we are filming and they are going to be in public. So the soldiers, they came toward us. Sometimes they like kick us away. And most of the time, they just detain us, took our phones, took our cameras, and sometimes they detain us, and after they detain us, they took us and they arrest us. For example, I'm not allowed to be like to move like everywhere because I'm not allowed. I have like something called a police red point, which is I'm not allowed to have a permission. I'm not allowed to do like my job everywhere. So I am a little bit limited with this point. So they are trying really to squeeze more and more on us. So we cannot in this way show the reality and show what is happening here and tell the people that we are living under this occupation, and look at this occupation, what they are doing.
Yeah, it is absolutely disgusting. And it's also important to point out that far from it, the idea that that the Israeli soldiers are breaking up this violence or protecting the people from settlers, we all know that there's major collaboration.
Yeah, I told you, like they are all parts of the same body. So it's like a collaborated campaign aiming for the same thing. Like soldiers, they are arresting us, killing us, detaining us for what? For displacing us with something called like authority. Settlers, they do the same for the same goals and for the same things, but in a different ways. They launched pogroms, they launched attacks, they attack Palestinians, they attack houses, they burn properties. Police, they have another thing, which is to limit your access to move, or like your ways of freedom, and they arrest you as well, they detain you, they do that kind of points that I was talking about it. So in this time, you will be like just in one circle, and you cannot go out or go out of this circle.
Right. Yeah. Unbelievable. Well, we will share a link. I know you have a fundraising link, and also please tell people anything else you want to make sure that you mention before we wrap. And thank you for being generous with your time, and also would love to have you back on again to give us updates.
Thank you for hosting me. Thank you for everything. It's really meaningful that you are hosting me now to take my voice for all the people, so the people will understand, and for the people that they will know more about what is happening, and for the people that they don't know, now they know. And what I want from the people is what I just said now must stop here on this live, and that's it. It must be shared, it must be everywhere, so the people and everyone around the world, not just us, know what is happening and what is still happening. And I say it before in the last event, and I want to say it now. There is a phrase in Arabic, but I will say it in English. With one hand, we will never make the sound of the clap, but with two hands, you will do the sound of the clap. So we will be the first hand, and we need you people around the world to be the second hand. So together we can do something, and we can make serious things. We can make a real difference.
Right.
So thank you so much, and thank you for your help, and thanks everyone that want to help and to support me to continue with doing this work. Thank you so much.
And Mohammed, before you leave, I thought it'd be cool for you to overlap a little bit with our next guest, who is Miko Peled. I don't know if you know of Miko. Welcome, Miko. Miko's an activist speaker. He's with the Palestine House, but he's also spent time in Palestine and has observed some of the violence that you're talking about. He's also the author of the great book, The General's Son. And honestly, for me, was a very influential voice. I would say I was non-Zionist before, and Miko really helped me become anti-Zionist. And Miko was radicalized, if I can just briefly paraphrase. I mean, it's in your book, but you were radicalized by the killing of your niece. Do you want to explain kind of briefly about how that, when I say radicalized, I mean you were brought to reason. You were made reasonable.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, and it's good to meet you. Good to see you, Muhammad. يعطيك العافية.
الله يعافيك حبيبي.
ندير بالك على حالك.
والله لازم أنا أقول لك يعطيك العافية. يعني بتقول لك كانت.
What are you saying? Telling you that he speaks good Arabic?
I'm just wishing him the best, and to take care of himself and be careful in this crazy reality that they live. I don't know how. I've been to South Hebron Hills. I've been to Masafriata. Hebron. I mean, I don't know if you know me, Muhammad. I was born in Palestine. I was born in Jerusalem. But what radicalized, or I don't know, radicalized is a strange word. I think what
made you see reason. Let's say made you see reason, right? Yeah. Made you see reality. Realitized you.
Yeah, what realitized me is meeting with Palestinian activists throughout all of Palestine, from the Naqab to Hebron, Jerusalem, all the way to the Galilee, Lid, Ramle, all the different places where Palestinian communities exist. And first of all, it made me realize, coming from a Zionist background, that there's no such thing as Israel. Israel is a regime that has occupied Palestine. That's why when people ask me, I say I was born in Palestine, even though I was born to an Israeli family. But
and by the way, the son of a major, I just want to say, the son of a very high-ranking general, Miko Peled, right? Miko Peled, who then became very critical of Israel, left the military, and yeah, sorry.
Right. And so meeting Palestinians and seeing Palestinian resistance, like in the Naqab, seeing the Bedouin Palestinians, in Nabi Saleh, seeing how Palestinians, resist this reality, stand up, and in a way that's so fearless, in South Hebron Hills, in Hebron, and on. It was both inspiring, but also showed me that I was born and raised in a bubble, in kind of on the privileged side of an apartheid regime. I mean, that's the only way to describe it. And that's really been, and it's funny you mentioned my dad. He was a general in 1967. In 1968 he retired, but at the end of the 1967 war, he said, we can now make peace with the Palestinian people. We can do this two-state solution thing. And I was talking to some people in Congress yesterday or the day before, and I said, he used to travel in the 70s and 80s until he died in 95, and he would beg especially American Jews, and people in America in general, to stop sending weapons to Israel. He couldn't get a meeting, and he was a retired general. He couldn't get a meeting with a staffer. Nobody would talk to him during those years even about the two-state solution, and he was a Zionist. But now, of course, everything's different, and I think the whole conversation has evolved and changed. So we can talk about the fact that this two-state solution is nonsense and it's never going to happen. And so things have really changed in that way. But the inspiration to do what I do, the inspiration to open Dar al-Hurriya, Palestine House of Freedom here in DC, is people like Muhammad, is the activists on the ground, the grassroots leaders on the ground. That's the inspiration. And they're the backbone too. We're just not echoing, but we're like conduit of their voice, of the Palestinian voice here in Washington. And I don't think there's any Palestinian who doesn't want to see all of Palestine free, who doesn't want to see the refugees return, who doesn't want to see the reparations and compensation that Palestinians deserve. So that's our message. But again, it's not our message. We're the conduit for the message from leaders of the Palestinian grassroots leaders. That's really what it is. And it's interesting because people say, oh, Palestinians, they don't have leadership. We're looking at one right now, right? I mean, we're looking at Muhammad right now. There's so many brilliant leaders, not to mention the ones that are in jail.
Right.
And this claim that somehow Palestinians don't have leaders, they don't know what they want, is such complete and utter racist nonsense. So it's nice to see you. Nice to meet you, Muhammad.
Well, nice to meet you, and thank you to join, and thank you for these words. I really appreciate that.
Of course.
How's his Arabic, Mohammed?
It's great.
I've heard it's great. Yeah.
He speaks Arabic better than me, actually.
I doubt that, but yeah.
I said 4 words, but thank you.
No, yeah. Well, Mohammed, thank you again so much. And again, you have an open invitation. And thank you for all that you do and your bravery and your dedication. And it's really wonderful.
You are welcome, and thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
يلا مع السلامة.
مع السلامة. سلامات.
سلامات حبيبي.
Miko, it's been a while. So great to see you. Such terrible things happening in the world. What is your perspective on what's happening? And, as someone who also, I'm just curious, as someone who obviously served in the Israeli army, the son of a general, what is your perspective on Israel's preparedness or lack thereof?
Preparedness?
Yeah.
I don't know that I think the overarching theme here is really that nothing's changed. In other words, what we're seeing now is really the direct continuation of what we saw in 1948 and when the Zionists came to Palestine and this messianic vision of a greater Israel. But it's interesting, I was just watching, who Cy Hirsch is, right? Seymour Hirsch.
Yeah, you just watched Cover Up, the documentary on Netflix. Yeah, by Laura Poitras.
I just watched it, and I know Sai. I've known him for many years, and the documentary is really good. But when you look at the history that is presented in that documentary, there's nothing new going on. I mean, Trump and Hegseth just on Air Force One were saying that it was the Iranians who killed those girls in the schools and killed civilians, because we don't kill civilians, they do. Well, if we look at the casualty count, the Israeli and American attacks, who knows, the casualty count is huge, enormous. It's like they're piling up bodies. And the Iranians have been very, very careful, and the casualty count is actually, especially civilians, is very, very small, yes, if at all. And so this lie that somehow we're still the good guys, but again, you look at what Sy Hersh was doing, and going back to the 60s, and the lies, the establishment lies, and then the total disregard for the life of service members and for the lives of people who are not white. You know, it's white supremacy in a way that is so evident and so clear and so obvious. And then again, we look at Cuba. Why are they they're strangulating Cuba, Venezuela? I mean, this is just maybe the final hurrah. I don't know. Hopefully, it's the final hurrah of this white supremacist hegemony, and particularly in Palestine.
Right. Yeah.
I don't see how they come out of this. I really don't see how they come out of this intact.
Right. Now, Miko, I know you're not exactly in sync with the people of Israel. Do you have any sense of what they're experiencing there, how they're seeing this?
Well, it's so there's several ways to gauge that. One is you talk to people. Two is you look at the press, and three, you see what the politicians are saying. And the press and the politicians are clearly 110% behind the attacks, and they don't even mention in the Hebrew press. I haven't rarely mentioned anything about what is happening in Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem. I mean, the attacks that took place, in other words, what they're receiving from the Iranians. They're only pushing forward how they infiltrated and how they killed and how they penetrated and how they eliminated. I mean, this is how they talk. And of course, and things like, if you knew once the details of this attack comes out, you will be blown away because it is so incredible and we are so amazing and blah, blah, blah. People are afraid to say anything. I mean, nobody says anything about what is actually going on. I mean, my brother lives in Tel Aviv, and I kind of talk to him, and all I get back is things like, well, yeah, so far we're okay, Right. And as we see the images, clearly it's not okay. And clearly, I mean, people wonder, why are they bombing Tel Aviv? I don't know if people know this, but downtown Tel Aviv is where Israeli military headquarters is. It's one of the biggest bases in the country. That's the headquarters.
So does that mean that Israel has uses human shields, something that they constantly say about Palestinians?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. It's not an accident. It's not some kind of a coincidence that the headquarters of the Israeli military is right in the center of Tel Aviv, near the museums and the cafes and everything else. I mean, and of course, people live there. I mean, this is it's a residential area as well. So it's
once more, every accusation is a confession.
Completely, without any doubt, without any question, especially when it comes to this and when it comes to Israel. So that's it's hard to hear, and people aren't really, as far as I can see, aren't really posting because everybody's scared. Because if you do talk about what's going on, you do post, then I think there's a 5-year sentence or something like that you might be facing. So we don't really know, but I suspect that, I mean, I didn't think they were going to attack. To be honest, every time I was asked, I said they'd never do it. They're not that crazy. Nobody is that suicidal. And now that they decided to attack, I think they're going to pay a price heavier than anything they've ever seen. And what is the upside? I mean, it seems like what they want to do is what they did in Iraq, but Iran is not Iraq. This is not going to work. It's just not going to work. You don't go, I mean, it's just a completely different reality, and maybe they don't understand it. I don't know.
Yeah. It's interesting that you use the word suicidal, because people don't, not everyone knows. I mean, probably most people watching this show and people who watch your show know that there's the Samson option that comes out of Israel, that they have a nuclear weapon. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I've been asked about that. I mean, we all know that it's there. We all know, I mean, Cy Hirsch wrote the book about the Samson option. And I mean, the reality, I mean, if they do resort to using nuclear weapons, everybody's going to die. They're going to die too. I mean, it's a very small place. I mean, we're talking about an area that will be infected and everybody. So I don't see that. My sense is though that, I mean, who knows? I think the only hope we have is the fact that the Iranians have been, acting with great restraint and very strategically. And,
which you'd never know, by the way, ever know from the media coverage in the West that they use restraint.
No, of course. I mean, look at this has been going on for at least 2 decades. Everybody, Israeli prime ministers and their fellow U.S. presidents have been looking to Iran as a smokescreen for what's happening in Palestine, what's happening in Gaza. It's been going on for decades. And every time they would climb up the tree and then they would come down and we'd forget it. And again, they'd do something in Gaza and they'd pour to Iran and everybody's talking about Iran. And then, last year they decided to actually attack. This year they decided to attack. But the Iranian response has always been measured and disciplined. And that's really our only hope. But I think the mistake that's being made is they're taking this restraint as a sign of weakness. And you compare the statements made by Iranian officials to, say, Hegseth or Netanyahu. I mean, it's day and night. I mean, it's, on one side you've got these, people who just are addicted to war and death and weapons. And the other side, you have a party that wants to just, find a way to move on beyond this.
Right.
So we'll see. I mean, it's so impossible to predict. But again, when we look at the bigger picture and we include Cuba and Venezuela and on and on and on, then the only hope is that this was really the final hurrah of both Zionism and U.S. imperialism.
Yeah. And, another thing that's interesting is that speaking of projection and the difference in restraint, something we keep hearing is that from Western politicians is that the Iranians are these fundamentalists. They're bloodthirsty, fundamentalist theocrats. And at the same time, you have Mike Johnson making religious arguments. You have Pete Hegseth clearly making religious arguments. You have Donald Trump praying with his spiritual leaders, which is hilarious because we all know Donald Trump isn't religious. So it would be hilarious if it weren't scary and tragic. Yeah. And we know, and then you have all these military commanders telling their soldiers that this is a religious mission and that Trump has been anointed by Jesus Christ. So, who are the fundamentalists?
And this is very similar process has been taking place in the Israeli military. They have all these, commandments from rabbis and messages from rabbis and commanders who are the settler religious type, the national religious type, which are terrible. Right. And talking about, since the days of David, we've been, battling and so on and so forth. And it works. I mean, it's insane. And it's what's also interesting is that at least the vision, the images that are coming out, especially young Israelis, you see them celebrating. You see people celebrating and like showing their support. And, there's these polls that show that young Israelis are more radical, more right-wing and radical and fascist than ever before. That may or may not be true. I mean, my parents' generation committed the Nakba, so I don't know. But I think they had this image of being socialists and actually wanting peace and all that kind of nonsense. But
they didn't celebrate it, right?
The Nakba?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't openly celebrate it the way that they do now, did they?
Well, of course they did. I mean, when the Arabs left, everybody said, the Deir Yassin massacre was a terrible thing, but thankfully they all made everybody else run away. So now we can have our state and we can build our
right. But these guys wouldn't say today, they wouldn't even say anything's a terrible thing.
No.
That's what I mean. Yeah. I mean, I'm not downplaying or whitewashing what they did before, but I think the glee with which they do it and with which they record it.
Yeah.
Obviously, they didn't have cell phones then, but from what I can tell, they didn't.
Yeah, no, the way they presented it, they celebrated their success. They celebrated the success of the settler project throughout Palestine and so on. Not so much. And in fact, I remember there was an Israeli author by the name of Samech Izhar, and he wrote a novel, or maybe it was a play, called Hezbollah, Hezbollah, and it showed. And this is, I was in high school, maybe, or even before. And it was a play about the forcible displacement of Palestinians by the Zionist militia. And it was banned. It was banned, and people protested against it. And people, talked about, how could you possibly say this about our boys and that sort of thing. So they didn't celebrate it, but it existed.
Of course.
That's what I'm saying. And especially, and now looking at Cy Hirsch documentary Cover Up, it really hasn't changed. The U.S. is the same U.S. And Israel is, of course, the same Israel as we know, only with bigger weapons. And no sense of future, no sense of vision, no sense of moving beyond killing. And that's really scary. I mean, what I try to tell people here in DC, especially if I'm like at the Capitol, we talk about instability, we talk about violence. Well, what was the cause of all of this instability over the last 100 years? What is the cause of this suffering, homelessness, refugees? And now to look again what they're doing in Lebanon. Over 100,000 people are once again displaced, and looks like they're not going to be allowed to come back because Israel now finally, it's wanted it for a long time, but I think finally will succeed in taking all of southern Lebanon up to the Litani River. And so and are we not learning from the past? Are we just, complacent? Are we not doing enough? And again, maybe on the positive side, what I am hearing, at least from, and maybe you're hearing this too, from politicians that are coming up and have elections, is that the most powerful campaign slogans are no AIPAC money.
In the States, yeah.
No, I'm talking about the States, no money.
Yeah, of course,
for Israel,
right?
That sort of thing. So that shed some optimistic light. But yeah, over there, I mean, I don't think Netanyahu was beatable anyway, but he's done several things that no Israeli prime minister could have dreamed of doing. One was moving the American embassy to Jerusalem. That was a dream of every Israeli prime minister. Nobody thought they could ever do it.
And Trump helped him. And
Trump was his buddy. And then now launching a war with the United States. So when he comes for election in November, and some people estimate that he might call for early elections, it's a slam dunk for him. So that's the reality here. Hopefully there's going to be a change, because I think it seems like, at least, that the atmosphere and the public opinion is shifting in the right way. Even politicians. Right. I mean, Gavin Newsom said the word apartheid.
I know, it's crazy. Yeah.
So he's reading the polls, obviously, and he knows where the wind is blowing, and that's fine. I don't care why he does it, as long as he does the right thing.
Yeah, well, that'll be the big test, whether it's just discourse and lip service, or actually does something about it. Yeah.
But it seems like the next two election cycles are going to be very different than what we've seen in terms of support for Israel. I mean, Tom Massey is just phenomenal on this issue, and of course Ilhan and Rashida and all these others. So I mean, it's I think we're approaching. I hope we're approaching a better era, a better time, at least in this country.
And what is the view? So you have, what's interesting or disturbing is that it's not just religious Jews in quote unquote Israel who are Zionists, right? You have secular Jews, and obviously, like Netanyahu talks about Purim and talks about Amalek, but he's not even religious. What are the different visions? What is the secular Zionist view of what they want and what they're doing, and what is the fundamentalist, radical, settler religious view of what they want?
I don't think it's that different.
It's not different. Okay.
In terms of the land, in terms of the Palestinians, it's interesting. I was talking to somebody about Al-Aqsa and this idea of the Temple Mount and that this is some kind of a religious, messianic kind of a thing. I remember, I grew up completely secular, right? And my environment and my family were completely secular. I remember songs as kids about how we will build the next temple, we will build the temple. It has nothing to do with religion anymore. It's become a national symbol.
Right.
And I may have mentioned this to you once, but in 1967, when the Israeli forces occupied the old city of Jerusalem, the commander, who became a big hero, once they took Al-Aqsa, he got on the whatever it's called, the walkie-talkie, whatever it is, the communications, and he said, "The Temple Mount is in our hands." And that sent, and he was not religious. He was a regular, secular Zionist, like, the rest of the military was. And that sentence has become iconic. I don't think you'll find an Israeli that doesn't know that moment and that sentence. And so why do we care about the Temple Mount? Why do we care about building a temple? What is this? And I remember this sense being perpetuated that, that mosque and that golden dome, they are, they're like a sore in our eye, and, we need to build our temple back because it's ours. And so it's a completely patriotic, nationalistic symbol, far away from the religious messianic, who, of course, are always at the forefront of these conversations now. But it's been there for a very long time, and that is the big fear. I mean, now they've not allowed Palestinians to come and pray for several days. So Al-Aqsa is empty for the first time, probably since it was built, completely empty during Ramadan. Talk about religious freedom. And then, and the possibility of them doing something that will destroy it and blaming the Iranians is really not out, is really, I think it's quite a reasonable expectation. And what people don't realize, it's not just a religious symbol, Aqsa. It's, if you compare it to, other great monuments, the Taj Mahal, Notre Dame, things like that, it's much older. It's much more beautiful. It is much more significant in every possible way, all the Muslims in the world, but also non-Muslims. The place is incredible, is an incredible historical, religious. It's got so many ways in which it's significant. And once it's gone, it's gone. In other words, once it's gone, it's gone. And I think people should be very, very concerned about the future of Al-Aqsa. I think, as we look at other Muslim and Christian important, places throughout Palestine, we see the encroachment of Zionism. We see the encroachment of the settlers. We see it in Hebron. They practically took the Ibrahimi Mosque, which is also one of the most holy sites in Islam. Settlers took it. That's it. They control it completely. And so now there's the process. It actually has a name, the Hebronization of Al-Aqsa. So I think we should be extremely, extremely worried about what the future of Al-Aqsa and Jerusalem would be, because once it's gone, like I said, you can protest, you can start a war, you can do whatever you do, but it's going to be gone. It's going to be too late.
Yeah. So do you have any optimism besides, I guess, the changing attitudes here? I mean, do you think that Iran's response is I think a lot of people were surprised by it. Do you have confidence that they are going to be able to curb Israel and the United States at all?
Well, I mean, when we look at the targets that Iran has picked, they're strategic, they're smart, they have very few civilian casualties. None of it was done by, these are all American facilities. Tel Aviv, like I said, Israeli military headquarters is right in downtown Tel Aviv. I think the hope over there is Iranian restraint. The hope over here is the next election and the fact that people are shifting and they're not going to buy this, Israel first nonsense anymore. they're just not going to buy it. They're not going to take it. You had Prejean Bowler. I mean, we're talking about people from the right, people from the left, people everywhere. This is not going to continue. I think the shift here is maybe the only ray of hope that we might have. And again, it's too slow. I mean, we're not going to save a child in Gaza today. I mean, we haven't even mentioned Gaza yet. The horrors that are taking place there that haven't stopped, haven't slowed down. You had Mohammed here talking about what's happening in Masafriata around South Hebron Hills and so on and so on. I don't know if you mentioned it. I don't even know if people know this, but the people who live in the South Hebron Hills many of them are Bedouin who were kicked out of the Nakab in 1948. So this was their second home, and now they're being, thrown out of there. So the history is repeating itself, kind of. But I think the only ray of hope is for us to do. That's why the decision was made to focus on Palestine House of Freedom here in Washington, D.C., on Pennsylvania Avenue, near the Capitol, because that's where the work needs to be done. That's where the decisions are being made that affect Palestine. And it's not going to happen today. We know that. We're not going to save a child in Gaza today. But strategically speaking, long term, that's where our effort needs to be, in my opinion.
Well, Miko, thank you so much for joining. Anything else you want to make sure that we cover? Always so insightful.
If anybody has any doubt of how important their voice is, everybody's voice is crucial. I know we get lazy. I know we get tired of going to protests. We get tired of all the things that need to be done, writing letters, calling our elected officials. And by the way, elected officials shouldn't be limited to just national figures. We should do local elected officials, people who run for school board, people who run for city council, even small cities, they need to be held accountable, and they need to make the promise that they will not tolerate Zionism, will not go on the trips with AIPAC and so on. So every voice is important, every single one of our voices, every one of our votes, every one of our phone calls is crucial, absolutely crucial. So we can't just say, well, we'll see, somebody's going to come and save us. That's not how it works. And again, history shows that. History shows that. And if anybody needs proof, they can watch Cover Up on Netflix and see what this great journalist has been doing his whole life, and the fights that he's been fighting and the lies that he's been exposing and the horrors that he's been exposing. And it's funny because you listen to Rumsfeld, what he was saying at the beginning of the Iraq war, or the invasion of Iraq, and what they're saying now. I mean, it's almost word for word, verbatim what they were saying. It's almost word for word what they were saying as the killing, as the invasions became more advanced. If they put boots on the ground in Iran.
By the way, if you were watching this live, you were in luck. You get to see all of Miko for free. If you're watching this later, you can find some of our chat with Miko, which is very fascinating, at patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Again, that's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. So we are offering from this live stream 2 Patreon-only segments, one with Rania, Khalek, and one with Miko Peled. All of Andy and Mohammed are going to be free. And please do support the show at patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. And if you can't afford the $5 a month for the bonus content, you can just sleep well at night by paying $1 a month and knowing that you make the show possible. Okay, quickly. Hello from A2 Michigan. Please stay safe, Rania. Thank you. I will forward that to her. Ronnie Monarch is awful. Agreed. They're the ones calling for the bombings. Great to see you, Katie and Rania. Please stay safe if you're able to, Rania. President Trump is a fool who surrounded himself with Zionist, eschatological Christians and competent buffoons. Yes. Happy Women's Day to both of you, strong, beautiful ladies. Thanks, Tom Clubbin. Had Israel not called up 70,000 Israelis to go invade and fight in Lebanon during the week to 10 days prior to 28 Feb, Rania? I guess he's saying that that's why Hezbollah did what it did. I'm not sure. Or maybe the point there, watchful Rasputin. I don't know if you're a man or woman, sorry, or they. I guess the point there is maybe the pushback on Rania's claim that it's not just Israel, it's also the U.S., but I'm not sure. Emberg says decades ago, Biden did say that if Israel didn't exist, they would need to create an Israel. That's true. He also calls himself a Zionist very proudly. He said that so many times. Beautiful Rania, you look so pale. Be safe. Big hugs from the south of France. Dear Katie, can you get a economist Paulo Nogueira Batista on your show. Nogueira, sorry. Well, it depends if he's what language. He's a gem. Okay, I'll check. Even though you didn't call me beautiful and you called Rania, but I'll forgive you. Just kidding. Thank you, Naomi. Rania, since every episode of Piers Morgan's show is ripped off from your Badistan video, shouldn't he pay royalties to you? By the way, you look good as a Fox News blonde. Free Badistan. Okay. Thank you for the super sticker, Alex. I like this point, Sparky. I've heard the dynamic between the U.S. and its forward operating base, Israel, being like a marriage. Sometimes one spouse is dominant, other times the other spouse is dominant. Yes, but it's a partnership either way. And of course, Israel is the United States' wife, and Saudi Arabia is the United States' mistress or side piece. Okay. Thank you for the super sticker, Zaf. Thank you for the super sticker, Karina Kleis, and thank you for the Aaron Bushnell photo. RIP. Thank you for the super sticker, Izzo of Faux Show. Thank you to Katie and Mohammed for still providing information about Palestine. Izzo for Faux Show. Thank you for that super chat. Joseph George, thank you for your super chat, Joseph George. Reports about the use of tactical nukes. Share. Didn't get to that. Apologies. Thanks, Katie, for standing with the truth. Respect to Miko Anam from Pakistan. Thank you. And of course, so much happening in Pakistan. We'll have to do an update on that shortly. Thank you all so much for watching the Katie Halper Show. We will be here at least Tuesday night, as always, at 7 p.m. EST. And make sure you do subscribe, because again, we've been doing these extra streams. If you haven't liked already, please like. And thank you for everything that you guys do, all of you who are doing stuff out there in the world, and we have to stay strong. Bye, everyone.